Okay, welcome back. That was a quick break. I hope you all managed to get out and get a fresh beverage and get back to the computer screen or the TV. The next guest I would like to introduce is the current president of the Amherst Railway Society and the show director for the Railroad Hobby Show for the past 20 years. He's going to be here to give us a bit of a chat about the history of the Amherst Railway Society and a quick behind-the-scenes look at how the show's put together. And for you Australians who are out there, this is the biggest model railway show in the world. I went last year for the first time, and I can tell you it's the only model railway show I've ever been to where one of the major manufacturers hires a fleet of minibuses to ferry people out to the car park and back again. I mean, you know, we'd be lucky if we had enough room to actually get a minibus in some of our shows. Never mind actually having it running out to the car park. But anyway, no further ado from me. I'll hand it over. I'd like to introduce John Sacerdote from the Amherst Railway Society. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Marty. And thanks for having me, too. And I appreciate it. It is that time of the year, even though it's a holiday coming up. It's right after the holidays where it becomes my favorite time of the year. And I've got two things to talk about. Let me give you a little background about how all this started, and then I'll tell you about what it's like in preparation for the show. And we'll start at a timeline that pictures the show just ending, and I'll take you through what it's all about. But the Amherst Railway Society, even though we're headquartered in a town about 30 miles away, started in Amherst, Massachusetts, and it was started by a bunch of college professors. You know, and having been an old teacher myself, I picture these guys sitting around in the faculty lounge, if you will, and all of a sudden, somebody says something about trains, and the guy next to him says, "Wait a minute, you play with trains? I play with trains." And that's generally how it exactly started. And this was back in the early 60s. So a bunch of college professors were starting to talk about it. It grew into a couple of the master's candidates, so we had some grad students involved as well. And they said, well, we should do something about this. Let's have a night where we all bring our stuff in, and we'll use one of the classrooms, and we'll just look at what everybody's been working on. And then that's actually how it started. So the first recorded minutes of all of this, after about 4 or 5 years, was in it was early 68. And there was a notation in the log, and I actually have the notation here. And it actually says, unusually large collection of locomotives and cars displayed. And there were 68 members at the time. It was very informal. There was no dues or anything like that. So it continued until they said, well, other people from the outside world want to hear about this, want to see what they're doing. So in the mid 70s, they actually started using the student union for an exhibit hall, and they were asking for donations no more than $2. So it was pretty funny. And when what happened is they just outgrew the student union. Oh gosh, sometime in 81, I think, was the last year at the student union. And they actually had to move somewhere. There was no place bigger. So they actually approached the Eastern States Exhibition people, and they had a building down there called the New England Center. It's nowadays used for storage. And I mean, it's packed 20 feet high with benches and programs and different things that they use for their 17-day long show, which is it's probably the 5th or 6th largest agricultural show in the United States. This past year, they just broke another record. They had 1.53 million people in 17 days. So we took that New England Center, and it was a one-day show for 4 hours. So it was interesting, but people wanted to get in. People wanted to see more. There were people at the door when we were closing. So we moved after 3 years in the New England Center to what's called the Better Living Center. Everybody around here calls it the BLC. And we took half the building back when they had a curtain across it. Now, the Better Living Center is 135,000 square feet. So we had around 65, 70,000 square feet, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it grew after 2 years of taking the entire space, moved across the walkway to the Young building, which was another 53,000 square feet. Then the Stroh building, which is another small building, about another 20,000 square feet. And that's when I came on board. I said, geez, there's a couple more buildings there. And people were waiting. At one point, we had a 6-year waiting list. And now it's down to about 2 years. And the waiting list we'll talk about in a second. But I said we could fill another building. So there was the Mallory complex, and we took it slow. We took the front half of the Mallory complex, and that was about 15,000 square feet. So that didn't last long, 1 year. And then we started growing into the back of the Mallory complex to the point where this year we have taken it all. That's 150,000 square feet. So if you add it all up, counting our outdoor space where we have some outdoor displays, live steam locomotives in the past. This year we have a rail bus. Looks like a real bus, only it's on rails. It rides on the rails. We take over 350,000 square feet. There are no additional buildings that are weathered. So this is as big as it's ever going to get. And there's no other place in all of New England. When I became show director 21 years ago, we looked. And the only place is Boston or Jacob Javits in New York. Jacob Javits has 1 million square feet. Couldn't go there because it's close to $60, $70 a day to park. Couldn't go to Boston because they only have about 250,000 square feet. So we're at the Big E for quite a while. And they treat us really well. And honestly, we are the largest show there other than the actual fair that they have late September, early October. So it's been interesting. And for the last couple of years, knock on wood, weather's been great. And we've had a show in consecutively for 55 years other than 2021 with COVID. The one and only year that we didn't have a show. But what we did is we had a marathon virtual show. We were on the air for about 8 or 9 hours on Saturday and 8 or 9 hours on Sunday. And honestly, Sunday night, because I was the host, as you can imagine, for the whole thing. And we had a lot of guests, and it really saved us by having that virtual show. There were a lot of specials, a lot of people doing a lot of things, but I couldn't talk. For Sunday night, I was done. And Monday, I couldn't speak at all. It was pretty funny. So that was basically the history now of the show as involved by the Amherst Railway Society. The Amherst Railway Society started back in those days when I said, and we decided let's do more. So we actually have a headquarters now in Palmer, Massachusetts, and we're building a model railroad in the basement. We're starting a garden railroad out back. We have an acre of property, and we've already got a nice plan, and we're working with folks at the town to make sure we're all in code and all of that good stuff. So there's a lot to do and see when you come to our headquarters. And we've started a lot of things with this theme called Kids on Track. And really, if you, this will get morbid just for a second, and I apologize, but when I call people to see, hey, are you coming this year? Are you coming this year to the train show? Every year for 21 years, I've had at least one person die. And it saddens me a great deal because we're older in this hobby. And so we've got to do something for the kids. So we're doing this Kids on Track, and it's kind of like a kids job fair. We have all the local railroad clubs in the area come up to the Union Station in Springfield, Massachusetts, newly restored, beautiful station. And we have a job fair. In other words, we just show our trains and say, if you're interested in joining, here's where we're located. And there's 7 or 8 different clubs up there. We did it again for Halloween. And we said, bring a costume and you can ride the train, CT Rail, which runs from Springfield, Massachusetts down to New Haven. We did a turnaround in Hartford. We got off. They had trick-or-treat bags waiting for us in Hartford. So the whole thing down 40 minutes, 15 minutes on the platform with goodies, 15 minutes back. We sold it out in less than a week, 240 kids. And we still had 20 or so show up at Union Station. There's no way we were going to refuse anybody, little kids in costumes with their parents. Are you kidding me? So we had over 250 people ride down. What a riot with all these kids and parents in costumes. So our Kids on Track program is really, really doing well. We've been working with the NMRA about how we could do more. And one of the greatest things that's happened is for this second year in a row, you're having all your meetings during our show. And it really is allowing us to work with you guys and come up with better ideas, how we can work together. And we love that kind of stuff. So that basically is the history. If you're ever up in the area, we're open every Saturday, not this Saturday or next Saturday because of the holidays, but we're open on Saturday mornings, and we give tours. And if you're a kid and you want to help work on projects, it's all under supervision. And we're building a 4x6 railroad, and we've got a Z scale railroad, an HO scale, an N scale, an ON30 railroad. You can see a piece of it behind me, and our HO railroad downstairs, and we've got a G scale time saver, which is a blast for kids. But what's funny is how to teach them to do a runaround. To this day, we still have op sessions every Tuesday night. And with a group of over 250, you can imagine there's plenty of layouts to go to. So Tuesday nights is our op session night, and Friday night is our work session night. So big round robin, and you're welcome to attend any of the railroads that are open on either the Friday evening for a work session or Tuesday for an op session. We just had an op session last Tuesday, and we had about 24, 25 guys there in a very large double scale, double deck railroad, HO scale. So that's always a lot of fun. Dispatcher, signals, the whole bit. So some of these guys have some pretty nice railroads. So it's a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, the way we roll, if you don't want to run a train, don't worry. Just come on up and shoot the bull with us for a couple hours. So it'll allow us to just get together. One of our guys who has since retired has said it's his weekly men's club. And while he uses that term loosely, there are some women that come and operate with us too, which we love. So that's a great thing. So if you're ever up in this area, get a hold of me and I'll let you know what's going on either on a Tuesday or a Friday or a Saturday if you're up there. And even if we're not open, just come on up and I'll show you. I can arrange to have you guys see a couple of really nice railroads. So it'll allow us to do that. So we're always looking for fresh ideas. We just had a board meeting this past Wednesday. And at the end of the year, I always say, all right, guys, what are some fresh ideas that you could come up with that we could spread the word and get the community involved in everything. So we've got some good ideas coming up. We're going to introduce some of them at the train show. And it just goes on and on and on. My term as president is up in June. We have a 2-year term. Then I am the immediate past president. But prior to my term, I was the president-elect rather than a vice president. So it's a 4-year commitment as president. You're president-elect, then president for 2 years, and immediate past president. And I tend to always be on the board anyways because I am the show director, and there's a show committee. For those of you that don't know, our largest source of income as a small nonprofit that we are, we're a 501c3, is the train show. And all the money that we make after our expenses for the year, which includes running our building, we give it all away in a formal grant program. And we've given away since 1991, we've given away over $850,000 to other deserving nonprofits that have something to do with railroads. And that includes libraries, scholarships to rail camp, all that kind of stuff. So we're really getting real close to the $1 million mark. And at this rate, it'll probably take 3 to 5 years at the rate that we're giving. So we have a formal grant program that goes live right after our train show. There's about a 2-month a period where you could apply, and then we get together and figure out who's deserving and which programs are closer to completion that we could help complete, all that kind of stuff. So lots going on here. And if you care to join, it's really a lot of fun, and the cost is next to nothing. Right now, it's only $5 a month. Not that I'm looking for members, but just to let you know, if you go to the website, amherstrail.org, lots going on, and you could visit that. We also have railroadhobbyshow.com, which is a website dedicated to the show that's coming up at the end of January. And you're welcome to go there and see what's going on as well. In that website, it actually shows the show history. And if you see my eyes averting cheat sheet, that's where I was getting a lot of information about what years, because I can't remember all the years that we started and did all that stuff. But it's all there for you, along with a couple of videos of us being interviewed by local public broadcasting stations, that kind of thing. So there we go from there. So save your questions for this, and I'm gonna change subjects now, guys, to the train show. So right now I am in the height of it all. I just published the second version of the exhibitors list and the second version of the map within this past week. The exhibitors list just went up, second version, early this morning. So, and I still don't have it right. As soon as I publish, someone says, "John, I want to move," and all of that. So, and I'm playing that slide game. Remember when we were kids, we had that little tiny 1 through 15, and it had 16 slots, and you have to slide everything around so all the numbers are in a row. I used to love that game, actually. That's what I do when I'm assigning tables, trying to make it all fit. And anybody that asks for anything, I really try to comply the best I can. And as soon as I published, someone said, "Yeah, but I needed an extra table," and I went, So I'll slide things around and we'll get someone what they need, because they're all reasonable requests, and any reasonable request, we're going to try like a son of a gun to comply. All right. So timeline, the show just ended. All right. So we do nothing during February. The first 3 days of the week after the show, I actually go up there Monday and make sure all the shipping is out. We try to help folks by being our own drayage company. So you ship things to the show and we'll be up there to make sure it gets picked up. We have forklifts up there, so we'll try to help people. So Monday at noon is when we usually get everything shipped out. I go home. That's it. I wake up on Wednesday. And very seriously, it's not full, but I sleep for about 2.5 days on and off because I am just exhausted. They give me a great hotel room up at the grounds. I'm never there. I'm there for like 4 hours a night. So it's interesting. So now it's the middle of February, and I'm kind of recouping now. So March 1st, it starts all over again. So this truly is year round. So March 1st, we start with hotel contracts. And now that we have the Northeast Regional Large Scale Train Show, our contracts include that April show as well as the following year. And if you go to railroadhobbyshow.com and look at about the show and look at accommodations in the area, there's quite a few hotels there that we contract with, guys, to get some really great rates. Beware this year, and I'm glad I was able to say this, there's been a couple of sites that are spinoffs of Expedia. They're legitimate sites, but they're offering full rates at a lot of the hotels. Hey, we've organized this list of Railroad Hobby Show hotels. It's all at full price. So go to our website, which is truly the correct website to go to. Example, the Sheridan, they were offering $275 a night. Our rate for the show is $109. And a couple people made the mistake of going through Expedia and paying full price. Go to our website, because people contract with us for years, guys, and we have some great hotel rates. So keep that in mind as well. So we contract with hotels, usually get the contracts back by the end of April. It usually takes about 30 to 60 days. And in the meantime, we're starting already to look at who wants to return to the show. So we have this great piece of software that controls it all. It's a company that I used to work for up until just a year ago. And I did computer training for years. And I did that after owning my own computer company for a number of years. And the software that we use is all about matching people to openings. It was actually employment software. And Gordy actually did some work for a third-party company who knows the company that I used to work for. So we have a little connection there from their offices in the UK. But anyways, we use this great software, and it matches space to the people that have contracts. So it's interesting stuff. So it's all computerized. It's all cloud-based. I could get to it from my cell phone from anywhere. I don't have to worry about backups, because it backups automatically all the time. So we start working on whoever went to the show the year before, it does an auto copy of the contracts for the new year. And then we look and see if there's any special notes that we have to do. I want an extra table, that kind of stuff. So we'll work on that for April, May, and June. And we're talking, guys, this year we sent out 460 contracts to 460 different exhibitors. Now, believe it or not, the show is as full as I've ever seen it in the years that I've been doing this. The show is absolutely full. There's not a single table left, not one. And in all of the buildings, I think I could squeeze maybe another 6 or 7 tables in the Stroh building. And that's the smallest and oldest of the buildings, but there's still some great exhibitors in there. And the people that are in there, they don't want to move. And I don't want them to move because I can't fit them anywhere else anyway. So for the first time ever, and this goes back to before the holiday, right around the 1st of December, I had no tables left. And I said, whoa. And of the 460 contracts, yeah, people cancel. So we have 375 exhibitors coming to the show. So we had a lot of cancellations, people that retired, don't want to come back. It was too crazy for it. We've actually had people tell us there's too many people at the show. Last year we had just over 18, I think it was 18,300 paid, but there's 3,700 people in the show. So when you're there on Friday setting up, there's 4,000 people there, counting our volunteers and everything, and people are buying, actually. So anyways, back to getting the contracts set up. They go out the door the last day in July. So we're working for 2-3 solid months to make sure all the contracts are set up. All the documentation is new for the next year. Then we send contracts out in July, end of July, first week in August. They have to be already out the door. The danger of that is it's 6 months before the show. And so we get a rash of people at the end of October. I don't know where my contract is. It's because we sent it 2 or 3 months ago, but we can't help it. It takes that long to get everything in order. So contracts come back and we have an early bird. So if you send your contract back and you're paying for tables, if you're nonprofit, if you're a layout, you do not pay for tables. So if you're selling, you pay for tables. And if you bring your contract into us early, you get a 10% discount. And there's a final deadline towards the end of October. And this year, because there were so many people and I had limited space, I actually, for the first time ever, chopped some contracts. If you miss the deadline, I canceled your contract. And I hate doing that. And we had about 10 or so people said, no, I forgot, please. And we were able to take care of them. So it worked out well. So contracts are out the door. And so I wait to the end of the contracts to get in. So right around the end of October, the first part of November, I start assigning tables. But everybody has notes. And picture a rectangle of 10 tables, guys. And let's say there's 5 people with 2 tables, right? So that's the 10. 3 out of the 5 say, John, I want another table, but I don't want to move. So it's impossible. So I call up and I say, this guy, do you mind moving? And they don't want to move because people know where they are. So part of the dilemma for me is the show I want to keep fresh, but all the exhibitors love where they are. People know where they are. They don't want to move, yet they all want more space. So something's got to give. And it usually works out okay. I can move people to another heavily trafficked area. And I say, look, if you don't like it, I'll move you back the following year. Not a problem. So that usually works out well. But this year, after all of the notes, I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've got no space. So the Better Living Center filled up first. And that guys, there's 750 tables in there. Altogether, there's like 1,500 tables. In the back of Mallory, there's 20 layouts. We usually do 12-foot aisles, even though the fire marshal says 10. We had to sneak it down to 11, 10, 6, because we have so many layouts in the back of Mallory, interspersed with tables and sales and all that kind of stuff. But we've never had more layouts. There's over 60 operating railroads in the entire show this year. So interesting stuff. So a lot of new exhibitors. We could talk about a couple of the exhibitors that are new that we're really excited about. in a few minutes. So now, right around mid-November, I'm getting close to publish. I've never missed the deadline of December 1st and 2nd, or that first weekend, depending on when it falls. This year was 1st, 2nd. We published the map for the first time and the first iteration of the map. And there's maybe 340 exhibitors on it because I still haven't heard from some people. And I know they want in the show. So we try to be as good as we can, but we'll make phone calls. We'll make dozens of phone calls. Are you coming? And they will go, of course I'm coming. I said, well, the conversation goes just like this. I said, when were you going to tell me? And they go, oh, John, and it's just funny. And it's not always the same folks, but we'll do everything we can. We'll send emails out to say, hey, look, this is your last warning. And then we always call anyway. So it's not a great thing to publicize because people go, well, he'll call me anyway. But, this year we surprised a few people by canceling contracts because we had to. There was just no space available. So it was interesting stuff. So now that we're published, we also need to gather ads for our booklet. We have a booklet that shows who's where, a couple of our notations, when our in-house clinics are. We run 2 days of clinics prior to the show. Guys, we're asking for the NMRA to help us next year on clinics. So we want to do more together. That's one of the ways we're going to be able to do it. So we're going to be able to do that. But we've got 2 days jammed of clinics. And so you come to the clinics on Thursday, Friday, you get a 2-day pass to the show automatically. And then it's a 4-day event. This year, we've got extra things going on as well. We've got a 7.25 layout large that's open, and they're going to show you their shops. We've got what's called a shop hop, and there's a 5 to 6 yarn, fabric, knitting companies that are doing discounts for people that come from the show. Marty mentioned that we do have shuttles. So we have sponsored shuttles from Union Station to the show. We space them out. So they run about every 15, 20 minutes. They're free because they're sponsored by a couple of our fantastic manufacturers. And this year, CT Rail, which runs from New Haven up to New Haven, is running extra cars on the train, on several trains. They do 7 trains in each direction a day. So they're putting a couple extra cars on a couple extra trains on Saturday and Sunday, and even Friday. We just had a meeting with them down at their headquarters in New Haven this past Tuesday. So they're doing all kinds of extra stuff. And so we want this to be a 4 or 5 day extravaganza, culminating in the largest trade show in I heard Marty say the world. Marty, that's probably true. I can't prove that, but I can prove it's the biggest trade show in North America, not only in square footage and in attendance, but also in sales. And the way I backed into that, guys, is I found out what the total number of sales tax was, and it was considerable. So I used that and backed into, well, if 6.25% is almost $500,000, then 100% is like over $10 million in sales at this show in the weekend. The other way I tell is from the 8 ATM machines that are there. 2 of them have 2 trays, and if you know ATMs, which we have to, 6 of them have a single tray, 2 of them have a double tray. So that's like 10 trays. Each tray holds $60,000. They're empty. When they had only 6, they were empty Saturday. They were, and so people were scrambling on Sunday. But so you're talking about over $500,000 in cash that transacts at that show. So that's how we know we like to say we're the largest dollar grossing trade show. And if you talk to some of our exhibitors about how much they sell and some of the bargains that you could find there, I got to believe that's probably true on certain years. So interesting stuff as far as that's concerned, guys. So now I get contracts back that I have to adjust. This is all from December. Things happen. In the old days, I'm only the second show director. But in the old days, what used to happen was if you canceled, you were in serious trouble. And I don't go that route. People get sick, people have accidents, people's wives, exhibitors' wives or husbands break a leg or something like that, or they get sick, especially in these post-COVID years. Call us, tell us what's going on. If you cancel, we'll reserve your spot. It depends on what time of the year it is for if you want a refund. Right now, you're still eligible for a refund. January, if you cancel in January, no refund. But if and we take it on a case-by-case basis, we'll apply that money to the following year. So we try to be as fair as we possibly can, knowing that there's things that we have to pay for. For example, we get 1,500 tables. Well, tables were $10. So you're talking $15,000 just for 8-foot tables. They just went up to $15. So now you're talking, oh my, quite a bit of expense. So only when we're forced to raise the prices, it is because of the expenses going up, and it's about 3.5% every year. So, but we've held prices to the show to $15 for the past 5 years, and we're still trying to hold as long as we can. But those darn expenses, and it's it's just life, guys. Those expenses keep going up. So we also will sometimes, depending on the weather, get tents to connect the buildings so that you're not out in the weather, that kind of thing. But one of the things we offer, and people get a chuckle out of this, is this show is so extreme, especially on Saturday, guys. We offer a bio break, for lack of a better word, a bio break service. And what that means is if you come into the show alone, you're making a mistake, because you're talking about 7 or 8 people deep in the aisles. And it's hard to take 2 minutes away to get to the bathroom. And this is out of necessity. We learned the hard way, actually. So we actually will man your tables while you take a break and go to the bathroom, because there's no other time you can do it, because it's just non-stop 7, 8 people deep, usually on Saturday. It does thin a little bit. We'll get 13,000 on 10, between 11,000 and 13,000 on our best year on a Saturday. We'll get between 8 and 10 on Sunday. And more families on Sunday, but people hang around the end of the show on Sunday for the bargains, because a lot of guys don't want to take stuff back with them, guys. After 15 hours a day standing on concrete, they're tired. And when we've asked, do you want to extend the show? We'll start like at 6 p.m. on Friday. We do surveys every once in a while. The majority said, no freaking way. No, we're dead already. And honestly, we get there on Wednesday. So when it's time to set up for the show, which is the last part of what I want to talk to you about, and I'm there from Wednesday morning, and by the time the show opens Saturday morning, I can't walk. It's just shin splints from walking on cement for 3 solid days. So we're in the middle of a couple of cancellations. I call the wait list, of which there are 200 people on it. I could fill tables in one call, because people want to come to this show. So occasionally 2 or 3 calls, that kind of thing, depending on the tables. So the tables will be full. We actually have standby service. It works just like the railroad, the airlines. If you don't show up by 8:30 the morning of the show, 30 minutes before your flight takes off, so to speak, your tables are forfeit. And the people that are there with trucks and stuff will take those tables. You've got to let us know if you're not going to be there by 8:30, or you'll lose your tables. So we have standby service, and we take a list of who's on standby in the order of which they're on standby. So it's very different, this show. So what happens when it's the week of the show, usually what will happen, and I back up a little bit, the Friday after New Year. So this Friday, it's January 5th. We'll have what I call a pre-con meeting from my old days of meeting planning. We'll go to the Big E. We'll sit with their staff, our staff, the lead floor managers, the people that take money and we'll figure out, okay, what do we need this year that's different from last year? It is so routine now because we've been working with them forever. They just made a cake for us last year because it was our 40th consecutive year that we were with the Big E. Not counting COVID because we had contracts with them, but obviously the health department closed us. But so we've been with them forever. So they are so good to work with. So when we go into that meeting, boom, 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 go through the agenda, any changes, we're out in 35 minutes. And we know exactly who's going to be where, when, who's going to where place the ticket booths, everything. So that's done and that's going to be done this year, January 5th. And so then we show up on Wednesday of show week, and we go across the street to a restaurant where we actually draw a tab for the duration of the show. And all the volunteers and the guys that are floor managers, we meet every morning, 6 a.m. They open an hour early for us, and we just talk about what's going to happen for the show. But we'll go there first on Wednesday, then we'll go over to the Big E, and we'll start surveying the building. And it's not the same every year because it depends on how many tables, where they're going to be placed. So we have to survey the building. Now, the building, it was shot a few years back with laser. So we're accurate in all of the buildings to about 2 or 3 inches. And back in those days, we used to have to measure with tape and all of this kind of stuff. We still do, but we know exactly where every pole is, and we know the dimensions of the concrete where the creases are made. So we'll use all of those dimensions to chalk out where every single table goes. And then we have another crew following the surveyors that set up tables. And guys, 8-foot tables, they're wood, so they're not light. So we have a crew of a couple dozen guys. All they do is set up tables. God bless them. And then they'll lock them into place. They just stand them up. And then there's another crew that places them in the right spot. So this happens this has to be done. We can't leave Thursday night unless it's done because everybody comes in Friday morning for setup. We used to do this in one day, but when the show got so big, we needed 2 extra days. So when it was just the Better Living Center, set that up in one day, easy. So we'd come in Thursday afternoon, and then we'd be all set for people. Now we have to come in Wednesday morning because we've got 4 buildings, and they're different every year. The Stroh building and the Young building is pretty much the same, but Better Living Center is very different this year. Mallory is like, oh my gosh, we had to really rearrange everything to fit all these railroads. Some of which, guys, are like the Reading Club. They have a 20-foot wide railroad by 160 feet long. And it actually won Best in Show last year. So we do have contests for Best in Show layout, Best in Show module, and we actually have a silly one, Best in Show module, least amount of scenery. And really, that's kind of like a little kick. Come on, scenic this module, will you? And so it's pretty silly. And when you show up with just plywood, you're going to win. So it's silly. And people go, no, I said, put some scenery on it. So it's silly. So that's usually what happens. But now we have layouts that are so large, our own Amherst belt lines, 8 scale miles of track. So you're talking a huge amount of area. The Reading Railroad, we let railroads layouts come in from noon on Thursday. We chalk out the railroad space. There's usually no tables there until they set them up inside their area. But we chalk out the corners of where the railroads are going to be, the layouts are going to be, and they get to set up early because they need the time. And a lot of these railroads now have cameras and monitors so you can watch the trains, and you can wave when the train is going by you and all of that kind of stuff, which is a lot of fun for the kids too. So lots of railroads where kids can play too. The Lego layout this year, guys, they started, John, we did a 20 by 20 space. That was maybe 6-7 years ago. Then 20 by 30. Then 20 by 40. This year, 20 by 80. I said, what? So the largest Lego layout, and it's really fun to watch. So you'll check it out. The New Hampshire Garden Railroad, guys, is 70 by 90, and it's a G scale layout that they set up. So there's some incredibly huge railroads. And then there's some S scale railroads. There's HO scale. There's N scale. And the NMRAx people are there. And they've got a huge layout as well. So, gosh, you could spend all one day looking at just railroads. So I had a friend from Chicago who's a model railroad crazy come up. And they said, well, how do we do this? And they said, well, let us figure it out. So they started at table 1, and it goes all the way up to 70 in the first building, then 71 to 100, and so on. So then 100 to 120 in Stroh, and then 121 on up to 170 for the different sections in the Mallory building. The first day, they got to section 21, and the guy had already spent $3,000. And he says, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, well, you're never going to see anything at this rate. But he was spending a lot of money. So it was hysterical because he had never seen anything this large before. So that's how crazy this show can be. So after we set up, we usually have pizzas on one of those nights, and the Hobby Manufacturers Association has their meeting there because everybody that's a member on the board is there. And that's what led the NMRA to have their meetings there. Gordy said to me a couple of years back, he goes, John, we'd love to have all our meetings at your show because there's more people at your show than any other show of our people. And I said, yeah, come on. And so I made room for a 20 by 20 booth, carpeted, padded, and we've got a lounge for the NMRA this year, private lounge upstairs, all kinds of cool stuff. And we've got room for the board. We had our clinic room used for the board meeting last year, not formal enough. So we've got extra rooms at the Sheridan where the board meeting is going to take place, and we've got stuff coming for breakfast, stuff coming for lunch. So we're taking good care of the NMRA, and it's a great partnership. So we love it. So it'll allow us to do that. So guys, by Sunday night, what we used to do, we used to clean up and not leave until it was done. Sunday night, I was there back in the early days till after midnight. And so we go around 9 or 10 and we go, the heck with this. And then a bunch of us come back, about a dozen of us come back for our final breakfast at the restaurant across the street. And we clean up, and we actually have the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts come in on Thursday night to set up table, to help us with the numbering of the tables. And then they break all the tables down on Sunday and pile them against the poles. So they help us. And we make a sizable donation to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts every year. That's not part of our grant program. I can't count that in the $850,000, although we've given them several thousand a year for 50 years. But anyways, we just try to be fair about everything that we do. So we're done about noon on Monday. And then we go and have a final lunch at the restaurant across the place. You wouldn't believe what an incentive food is for volunteers, guys. They love it. So the other day we have to tape our section numbers up. Well, they finally gave us permission to use these clamps that clamp to I-beams, for stringing cable and computer wire and stuff. So they're there permanently. And now all we have to do is hang the signs up there. So we were in there for only 2 hours about 2 weeks ago. And the incentive, I said, I need volunteers. And the incentive is as soon as we're done, we go across the street for lunch. Instantly had 12 guys sign up. It's all in jest, of course, and they know. And honestly, they deserve it because those guys that show up work really hard. And we were out of that building in 2 hours, and we're running around with ladders and all of that kind of stuff. So it was fun. So guys, I know we're getting close to time where you might want to ask some questions and such. What happens is after that, then it's time for me to hibernate for another 3 days, and the whole thing starts over again. So it's interesting. And when am I going to stop? I mentioned to the board 2 years ago, I wanted 2024 to be my last show. And they said, no. It was really easy. No. And honestly, I really thought about it, and I'm having too much fun. So I'm here for at least another couple of years. We've been asked to do the 2026 National Garden Railway Convention, the national convention, at the hotel and at the Big E. So I'll be around to at least that, and then we'll see. I've actually got guys shadowing me now just to learn. But I have got, guys, I've got it right here in front of me, a master to-do list. It's an Excel spreadsheet with 453 different items on it that I have to do every year. And it's all as far as I can chronological. And so I'm chipping away at it. It's actually in pretty good shape at this point. There's some things you can't do until the week of the show, that kind of thing. But it's everything from organizing the banquet for the show to setting up the meetings, putting computer drops in for high speed because Virtual Railfan streams the show live from 3 of the 4 buildings. All kinds of crazy details. So
yeah, that's a big hit down here.
Yeah, I could go on forever, but let's leave some time for some dialogue here. So
not
Marty,
a problem.
help me out.
I've had a look over here. I think Brad might be getting a couple of questions together to put in the spreadsheet for me, or I'll dig them out of YouTube. But yes, as I said to the Australians, after last year was my first attempt at getting to Amherst, and coming from Queensland and Australia, where we're in a subtropical climate, to suddenly being in Amherst, where you have this mystical white stuff on the floor called snow, which I hadn't seen since I was a kid. I'd seen photos of it, but yeah, it was an eye-opener. And as I said to all my friends here, I said, look, it's like going to the Mecca of model railroading. It's a pilgrimage you've got to make. If you can get over there, because you'll never see anything as big and as much as you'll see at Amherst. I mean, to give you an example, in Australia, our big train shows are usually in the big capital cities. So Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney are probably the biggest. And the venues that they have would be about the size of the Young Building, and that would be it. So that's why I say this has to be the biggest one in the world, because I know there's nothing in Australia, and I'd say with the space constraints that you have in Europe or the UK, I don't think there's any train shows over there that would come anywhere near the size of Amherst. I mean, I was just gobsmacked when I walked into the Mallory building and I saw one layout, and I'm walking, and it's still the same layout. And I'm walking, and it's still the same layout. And I'm going, you just don't see anything like this in Australia, the size of the layouts that get brought by different organisations and the likes over there. So I know I got about 5 people from my local NMRA division are all coming over for the show, and then they're travelling on to I think the toy show in Frankfurt or something like that as well. But there's about 4 or 5 of them that are coming over, and they're all really looking forward to seeing the show and seeing the hustle and bustle. I notice on the floor plan, it's up on your website there in the list of all the exhibitors. And I tell you what, I'm really chuffed that you've got a competition for me to enter. You were talking about the module with the least amount of scenery. Well, I reckon knowing the people out there who know me, I reckon I can probably take that one home. I reckon I can probably go to Walmart when I get there and buy a bit of plywood and come down and just nail a bit of track to it, and there we go. See if I can get someone to slip it into a module somewhere, and Bob's your uncle. But anyway, let's have a little look at what we've got here in the chat. Their plans. Are there plans for? Someone was asking the question here. Succession planning. Do you have a person underneath you that's ready to take the reins to
yes, Marty. Actually, I have a booklet. I have a train show directory, and it's got my to-do list in it in a great deal of detail, and the different departments, like floor managers, lead floor managers, volunteer chair, everything you need to do. And we've decided that I don't know why, but it takes more than one person to run this show. I've been doing this kind of thing many years in a previous life. So, and I do have a show office manager, but we're dividing the tasks for the show into two guys. So we're going to have co-directors. I think it's just going to be easier on folks and it'll make them last longer. So yeah, the big part of any kind of nonprofit, guys, is succession planning.
Yep.
And so we have a pretty good plan in place. And I've got two guys already shadowing me.
Cool.
And they're coming to all my meetings, etc. So yeah, we've got plans for someone, but I'll be around for a couple more years. I used to tell people this was a job very similar to the Pope. You did this until you died. But I want to enjoy myself. I was just down on my railroad, my HO scale railroad in my basement. I said, geez, I haven't touched this in a couple of years. It's terrible. I mean, we have an occasional op session, but I want to build more, and I haven't been able to. So it's still.
Gary was asking for an Australian wishing to get across there in the future, what sort of time days would I want at Amherst? Well, I'd say, Gary, you'd probably want about from the Wednesday before to the Sunday of the show, and that will give you the 2 days of clinics.
Yeah, Marty, if someone's coming from that far away, and I've been down, I did some training down in Sydney a few years back, so I know you're coming up on your summer now. But if you're coming from that distance, it's a heck of a train ride, of an airplane ride. And can you imagine train? But come early. Come early. We'll put together a package for you that lets you go to the clinic. If you don't want to go to the clinics, come and volunteer. We'll give you a volunteer badge. Help us, and then you could see what it's like to help set up the show. And it's not heavy work, some of the things you do. But if you're coming early and you want to make something out of it and you want us to help, just let us know. Email me, showdirector@amherstrail.org, and we'll come up with something for you.
Excellent. Let's have a little look here. A lot of people are saying it's well worth going. Save your pennies to get across there. Split Rock was asking about the shuttles. Do they run to the convention hotels?
Yeah, they make 2 stops at the hotels. First of all, most of the hotels are all within walking distance anyway, but the shuttle will leave Union Station, Springfield, and then it'll head down Main Street, and then it'll take a right where the Memorial Bridge is, which is the same road that the show is on. But it stops right in between the Sheraton and the Marriott, the 2 biggest hotels. But the La Quinta is right there, and there's a couple of other hotels that are 2 or 3 blocks away where you could walk to the lobby of those hotels or walk to Union Station. La Quinta is only 2 blocks from Union Station lobby. You can walk a couple blocks there, and then you'll take a ride. The show, actually, the fairgrounds folks have Uber and Lyft dispatch stations, so where you could drop off and pick up. And that's inside the gates. They'll drop you off right by our main entrance. So there's all kinds of ways to get there. But if you take the shuttle, it's free.
Beautiful. Dan was asking, he said, I'm a bit behind, so maybe it's already been answered, but how much was the cost of membership to the Amherst Model Railroad Society and the requirements to be a person or a member? Asking for a friend, he says.
Yeah, no requirements other than join. And even if it's just to support us, the dues are $60 a year. So it's $5 a month. And it's to me, guys, that's, as president, business guy, that's low. We have a building that we have to support. And I don't know of anybody that has a 3,000 square foot building with a under construction railroad out back and in the basement where the dues are $5. But that's what they are, and we welcome that, and it's working, and we've got about 250 members right now, and we'd love more.
Excellent. Well, I think having a look here, what have we got? Let's go down the bottom. If there's any more, I'm probably going to get the wind up signal from Brad any minute now.
Sure.
saying we're coming up to the top of the hour. But I mean, I can't talk more about Amherst. I mean, it just blew me away last year as someone coming from the far-flung colonies and thinking a train show in Sydney was big. And then I rolled up and found out that I wasn't going to see all of this today or tomorrow, but I need to plan to where I'm going. And I would give that as a piece of advice to anybody that's going, is download the floor plans and get a highlighter and mark where you want to go and see. Because if you're like me and you want to amble down the aisles, there's no way known you'll get that done in 2 days around this event. You really need to sort of pick out what you're going to see, I think. Anyhow, it's getting to the top of the hour. I'm getting the wind up from the production people here. They'll sack me and dock my pay apparently if I run over the hour. So, John, many thanks for your time, and that was really interesting. The background of the train show and what's going on. I mean, it really is a big event, and you and all the people at Amherst should be commended highly for the work that you do, and the fact that the majority of all the funds from this end up going to charities and get donated in the end. I really think that's a real sterling effort. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Not a problem. I'll see you in a couple of weeks after I get out of the pressurized toothpaste tube and work out what time of day, and the fact that the cars all go backwards over here and the likes. And I will see you then. And thank you very much for your time today.
You're quite welcome, Marty. Thank you so much, and the NMRA for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. See you soon, John.
Oh, I hope so. Yep, absolutely. Take care.
Bye.